Hello and welcome back to Human Alchemy, and we're back with a guest now, and my guest today is Dykes. So Ash has quite a few world records. He is an explorer and adventurer. He is the first person to walk solo and unsupported across Mongolia. He's walked the length of Madagascar, again, the first person. He's journeyed from source to sea, the entire length of the Yangtze River, another record. More recently, he's had 2 new records in Suriname, where he's travelled on, I want to say, a secret river almost called the Kopanam, and the fastest ascent of the tallest mountain in Suriname in the country is Julianatop. So quite a few impressive records. He's also been on some of the biggest podcasts in the world, like Joe Rogan, the High Performance Podcast, Jack Mate's Happy Hour, and now he comes on Human Alchemy. I've just said to him before the podcast he's doing his charity work, so we do appreciate it. He's also had a fair few stories. He's been stalked by wolves, he's crossed crocodile-infested rivers, he's been cursed by Madagascan forest witches, he's contracted malaria, he's fought off Tibetan mastiffs, he's competed in Muay Thai stadium fights, he's almost died in the Gobi Desert, and many, many more. And in today's episode, we're going to look at some of the expeditions Ash has had in the pipeline and in the past. So what's coming up and what he's already done, the business side of being a modern day adventurer, and stories from Ash's adventures. And I'm sure much, much more. So I hope you enjoy this episode of Human Alchemy with the man that local Mongolians named the Lonely Snow Leopard. It's Ash Dykes.
That was a great intro, mate. Thank you so much.
So, Ash, welcome. How are you doing?
Really good, mate. Good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
No worries at all. It's an absolute pleasure. And you've got such an interesting story. I reckon I've listened to a fair few of your podcasts to make sure that, we don't cover the same ground as others. But
yeah,
there is genuinely so many directions we can go with this. You've done so much.
It's been crazy, man. I mean, yeah, it's really difficult in terms of what direction, right? Because there's just so many stories.
And even there, I was looking through, I've given the sort of the high level ones, the records. I've not even spoken about the stuff you did for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you were a lad from North Wales, Old Colwyn, and you decided to just have a crack.
That's it.
You crossed illegally through jungles, learning how to survive. You've tried to climb, in the Himalayas when you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
All these sort of things that aren't even on there. There's such a wide variety.
It's ridiculous. Lucky to be alive, mate.
And here you are.
Here we go.
Here you are still going. But we're going to try and pick on a few areas that maybe haven't been discussed as much, and especially around the elements for this podcast as well. That performance under pressure. Yours is such a different element. It's that consistent life or death performance that,
it is.
We both speak to businesses a lot, and it's very, very different.
I think the stakes are just a lot higher, right? Because it's not a case of winning or losing. It's a case of living or dying.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It's not, will you get your spreadsheet completed in time? It is, I don't think I'm going to get water now. This is a tough one. Yeah. I actually did hear you. So we're going to come on to this. But while I'm on there right now, you've spoken about almost dying of dehydration in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. I heard you describe what it actually felt like. What does dehydration feel like?
Well, it's the worst feeling of pain where you feel every second of it. Yeah, it's kind of like people ask me, like, what's worse, extreme cold or extreme heat? And I think with extreme cold, you get this numbing effect when eventually you become delirious. And, most victims who die of hypothermia are found without their clothes on because they actually start believing that they're warm. Whereas in the desert, total opposite effect. I mean, you are very focused and very in pain, almost feeling your organs drying up, almost like they're not functioning, like they've not been oiled, watered, You are delirious, you are hallucinating, and it's this constant sort of like your brain is beating. I mean, it's horrific. I mean, in the Gobi Desert, there were many times I just couldn't escape the sun, so I'd have to hide under my trailer. But only half my body could fit. So my legs are literally burning, melting on the outside, and I'm lying on rocks. And I mean, it's one of those, I think you would have felt the pain almost like scraping your way along the desert floor with your fingernails until you just died.
So it's not quite summer on the district line, is it?
Not pleasant.
It's different levels. We've both had our challenges. But so the first one I actually want to ask you is one read about quite a few explorers. I always find it fascinating. It's not something I think I could ever personally do, but a lot of explorers will go out on their expeditions and they describe it. And when they describe it, they're like, barely had any food. I was starving. I was cold. I was then hot. I was constantly wet. I had maggots coming out my knees. Everything hurt. We had animals coming everywhere. We were getting bitten. The whole thing was awful. We were arguing the whole time. And then they get back and all they talk about is how they can't wait to be back in the rain. I'm like, what are you missing? And is that something you felt yourself?
Yeah,
and why
it is.
That?
Yeah, I think you forget the negatives. I think you come back and in your head it's kind of romanticized. You forget, you remember it and you tell the stories.
Yeah.
But you also are kind of in denial thinking you won't face that again.
Really?
You're kind of hoping that. So for example, with the Gobi Desert, I've never been dehydrated again. I learned my lesson.
Right.
Now, if I was to go out and I was to be dehydrated, I'm sure that PTSD would just kick in from when I was in the Gobi Desert. But I go out there thinking, let's not do that again. Let's better prepare. And so you're always learning in a way. So some of the craziest stories are actually from my earlier expeditions, whereas the later ones, although higher risk, more dangerous, I found there to be less crazy stories because I'm just more wise to it. I'm just more prepared. So I'm able to minimize the risk because there's a lot of meticulous planning. I think with what I do, a lot of people think like, oh, it's daredevilish, it's risky. I mean, if I'm 90% sure I'll survive it, I won't attempt it. I'll only attempt it if I'm 100%.
Really?
Yeah. If there's something that I know I can't overcome, that will grate me. I'd be like, why? Why can't? All as I need to do now is study, prepare, train, visualize it until I can understand it and know that when I'm there meeting it eye to eye, I can overcome it.
Right.
And when I feel I can, I feel good to go.
And you speak about that there. Is there an element on say you did an expedition and you did it start to finish and it kind of just all went smoothly? Would you be a bit like, I've got to sell this now? That was almost too easy. I need something to happen. Come on.
Yeah, a little bit actually. Yeah, I mean, if it's plain sailing and there's no major injuries, then of course that's always good. But I mean, you're out there for adventure. And if adventure doesn't find you when you're on the adventure, it's a little bit of a shame. Because it sounds crazy saying this, but I actually hate walking. It's so boring. And everything that you read off is like the walking.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's walking in these locations that you've stated. It's that no one really goes there. It's that there isn't, Madagascar was 155 days and there wasn't one day that was just an easy, pleasant day hike. Every day was utter brutality.
Really?
And you don't want it to be too brutal, of course, but you also can't predict it. So Madagascar, I just did not predict it being that difficult, whereas every day was something. And that's what I love. It's the walking that gets you to places that you can't go by running, by car, by bike, by other vehicle or transport, right? Which means that you meet locals that in Madagascar may never have seen a white person before. So you're getting these real, authentic, raw sort of interactions. And I think that's what I'm really sort of fascinated with within this life is to find those real, raw human experiences. I feel everything's been done. And, I mean, when we were in the Amazon, we came across carvings on the side that were carved into the rocks potentially 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, maybe longer. There's no one there. There's no new graffiti. There's nothing like that. Potentially no one has ever seen that.
Yeah.
But as Suriname gets more touristy, maybe one day in the surrounding area, there's going to be an ice cream van.
Yeah.
There's going to be a glass container. There's going to be multiple different languages saying, oh, these are engravings where the indigenous used to carve their weaponry, 5,000 years ago. And you're not going to have that same feel. So I feel most of life today, you're not able to get those. You're able to get real cool experiences. And some of the greatest experiences are found, in everyday life. But for those raw, authentic experiences, you've got to go far into places that no one really goes.
Yeah, and that you speak about that there aren't too many things that are left undone.
Yeah.
The Congo. So I've got a quote on the Congo here.
Nice. Straight in there with the Congo.
One of the last great geographical challenges left on the map, the Congo River. Vast stretches of swamp where the ground disappears, dense jungle, heat, disease, wildlife, long isolation, hostile locals, and in the lower reaches, violent rapids that force you from the river. To walk the Congo River from source to sea is almost impossible. I've heard you say many times, Ash, just because something hasn't been done doesn't mean it can't be done. Talk to me about the Congo. Why is that the last it's not the last, but it's one of...
Yeah, the Congo is the heart of darkness. It has fascinated me since I was a kid. I had an uncle from Zimbabwe that used to share stories about the Congo, about that region, about its bordering neighbor, Uganda. And all of the stories were pretty horrific, and these different sort of diseases that are being discovered, and these animals out there, and you've got literally everything there, and cannibals still. And so I think from a young age, that was always the point where it sounded like a different planet, not like just a different country on our own world. And so I've always been fascinated because I think it's one of the most hardcore missions out there remaining, and one of the last genuine true firsts. And when I say like true firsts and world records, I mean, there's a lot of people doing things where it's like fastest, or like I did in Suriname. I don't really put that at high regard because people have done it. It's not that unique. But to find a first that truly hasn't been done they're still out there, but it's nearing impossible. And I think whoever does that Congo from source to sea, it's got to go down as one of the greatest world firsts the past century, I reckon, let alone decade, if they survive it.
And you never think you'll give it a go?
I was planning the Congo and I had not everything, I had most of the stuff in place, logistics, I had security for the right regions in the area, I had permits, but I was also simultaneously planning the Yangtze River.
Right.
And the Yangtze is the bigger river. It's not the most dangerous river. Congo is the most dangerous one on Earth, full stop, But the Yangtze made more business sense.
Okay.
I knew that potentially after the Congo, business-wise, career-wise, progression-wise, wouldn't be as trajectory as the Yangtze would be if I was to complete that. So I was torn between the two, really. But the Yangtze it was for me.
Okay, which, I mean, it's hardly a easy alternative.
Yeah.
Just go,
I think
do the Yangtze.
Logistically, in terms of permits and paperwork, tougher. I think China in general is maybe one of the toughest rivers to do of all the mighty rivers, just because of the permits. They had to make me doctor.
Really?
Yeah, they had to make me temporary doctor. I then
temporary,
needed to,
you don't still have it.
Yeah, a year long.
Dykes.
Yeah, Dr. Dykes.
Treacherous Dykes on the book.
And then I was ambassador for the Green Development Foundation. Then I had to be in touch and working with WWF, which gave me direct access to the authorities in Qinghai province, which gave me government backing. Okay. So I had to carry 16 stamped and signed,
so it's tough,
laminated documents. It's insane, really, isn't it? But
it is. So the Congo, I mean, I don't know if anyone's actually going to...
Someone will, for sure. And it's going to be epic.
On that, though, what do you have coming up? What's in the pipeline for you?
There's a lot of ideas that I've got, a lot of different missions, potential world first, a lot of different TV shows as well that I'm working on, that I've just finished, but also that I'm planning. But there's something about the Middle East, predominantly Saudi Arabia, that fascinates me right now.
Really?
Yeah, I think a crossing, and I don't mean like a hike, I mean like a land, air and sea based crossing across the nation, across Saudi, across UAE and across Oman. I think make it operational, very operative. You're using modes of transport where the terrain dictates you need the most, and you're being dropped in, jump out of helicopter, you start, swim across the Gulf, paramotor a section, hike with a trailer, learn sort of camel training, and then you take the local nomadic tribals' knowledge to then set off with your own camel through the empty quarter, just you and your camel for a week, 2 weeks, and then continue to hike. And then you've got mountains that you'd have to hike up to paraglide off. So you'd be walking to jump off the cliffs and then keep doing that to cover distance. And then, scuba dive the remainder off the coast of Oman. And I think an operative mission land, air and sea across that nation is something that I would love to pursue potentially this year.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
And you start with the first one, swim across the Gulf. How large is the Gulf?
The Gulf would probably take me about potentially a week to do. Of course,
cool.
there'd be support. I would like to film it for TV as well. I'd like to create a buzz on socials, but I don't want this to be like a suffering. When I say suffering, I think there's only so much you can do with walking or running a country. I think now it's time to bring in the intensity and show off all the skills and sort of techniques that you need to operate inland, air and sea across various terrains. And I think that is almost like my calling now. You know, I've done all of the martial arts, the scuba diving. I've got my skydiving licenses, paramotoring, paragliding. I was a scuba instructor for many years.
Yeah.
I got the powerboat. You know, I kind of want to bring all of these together now. Get off the sort of, this guy just suffers and endures these challenges and like bring it in where it will be a lot of suffering, but it'll be suffering whilst having to keep a fully focused mind, because now you need to operate. You're in a helicopter about to jump. You're paramotoring across. You know, it's
that's a vast range of skills there.
Yeah.
That actually, when you put them all together, there is a lot there.
It's a lot.
That would be a brilliant way to show off.
It would be a mission. It would be 007 stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It would be a proper mission.
Either 007 or Johnny English.
Yeah.
Which one? It's the wrong building.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you got to be careful, right?
That would be amazing. And
yeah,
it actually brings us on quite nicely, because I did say to you before, are there any areas you feel get a little bit overlooked in the stuff that you do? Because you've been on quite a few podcasts, you've done a lot of work. And one area you said is the business side.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that side. How does someone monetize being an explorer and adventurer?
Yeah, I get this question a lot as well, so it's good that you brought it up so I can address that and explain. But effectively, so when I started, I was working in a fish and chip shop. I was working as a waiter, as a lifeguard, saving as much money as possible in Old Colwyn, North Wales. I raised, I think it was like 7-8 grand to travel for 4 years. I wanted that to last me, you know.
Yeah.
And so I set off at age 19 and I started to do a lot of reckless, sometimes illegal and very cheap, you know, shoestring budget style adventures to keep me out there for longer, but also to get me off the beaten track. So that's why this career kind of accidentally or organically happened, should I say, is I wasn't looking up to explorers. I didn't really know much about, you know, old school adventurers, explorers. For me, I wanted to save money and I wanted to create those, you know, raw experiences. I wanted to get off the tourist route and not share the same photo stories and experiences, but go out there and create my own and live with the locals, understand them, like take their knowledge and disappear into the jungle, into the mountains and see if I've learned enough to survive. And then, you know, this started to build. I was then fighting in Thailand, scuba diving, instructing, but I started to miss those previous adventures. But then I got wind of like more sort of modern adventurers and how they're making money from doing what I'm doing now, but I'm having to fight and then go to do an adventure, or scuba dive and then go to do an adventure. I'm like, how can I break out of this? Because that stuff doesn't pay you a lot of money, especially in Thailand, as you can imagine. And so what I noticed is they were actually building a personal brand. They were monetizing their expeditions. And I hate saying personal brand because it just doesn't sound right. But effectively what I was observing was they were doing just that. And by doing that, they were getting themselves and their expeditions more on the radar, and then brands would reach out to them. And then they would have book opportunities, and that could potentially, if they were very lucky, tie into it like a TV deal. And so I knew that there was an option. I remember being 22. So I was like, wow, you know, I want to follow my heart. Adventure is my passion. But, you know, equally, I want a family and money's important. And I can't just be fighting and living in Thailand. And so that was when I looked up Mongolia. I didn't necessarily know it was a world first. For me, I was still like sort of training. I was looking to do 100 miles across Mongolia, but, you know, I built and built and built. I started to look at different teams in different countries, bring them on board, logistical fixers, people in Mongolia. And we found someone who had attempted it, you know, 3 times, a Navy soldier, but was evacuated on all 3 occasions. And then it was there that I realized it's a potential world record. Now, if I was to complete this and achieve a world first record, to do it solo and unsupported, because otherwise nomads have crossed it for thousands of years with yaks and camels and whatnot. So the solo and unsupported element was crucial. Potentially there's a career. And it sounded crazy saying it, I'd say it to my family back then when I was 22, and they would just struggle to see that. They'd be like, "What do you mean you have people pay you to do a fun adventure? Like, what do you mean?" So the more that I broke it down and sort of articulated it in the right manner, the more they understood. But my path was already set. But it wasn't enough to make a living. I was still stuck living with my parents. I couldn't afford no gym membership. I think I made $3,000 within the first 12 months after Mongolia.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, since Mongolia, in that 12 months, you made $3,000?
Within that 12 months after completing Mongolia, I made probably less. I'm probably being generous there.
Really?
Yeah, stuck with my parents living. Thankfully they took me back after living out in Thailand. Training in my garden. My uncle dropped me off a tractor tire, a sledgehammer. So I would just train in their backyard for all of these world records. And then I thought Mongolia didn't cut it. I need to do something bigger. And then Madagascar came into it. And there was, I went from $3,000 within 12 months to $12,000 within 12 months. So I was like, that's a big increase. If I keep going, if I keep building this personal brand, if I keep reaching out to other brands, if I keep securing good press opportunities, and I wasn't growing my social media back then, because when it started, I wasn't on social media whatsoever. So I didn't really learn that till later on, to be honest. So potentially missed out, but at the same time, I'm kind of thankful because it put me in the moment, and I knew that I was doing it purely for a passion, not doing it to capture content to share, because it just wasn't a thing. But then I realized that, okay, that's what I need to do to also, make this a career, until eventually, it broke through, I think, after the Yangtze. It was the Joe Rogan podcast. I was then managed by Dwayne Johnson's agent, WME, in Los Angeles. We then secured a multi-million-dollar TV show filming the Great Wall of China, which was a big six-episode series. And then it was back-to-back between sort of TV and these sort of more hardcore expeditions. So it was like the Great Wall, then it was Suriname. And now recently it was the Yellow River. So 2019, I say, is when I eventually sort of broke through like 8 years later of like real struggle and suffering. But a lot of people ask sort of, how do you make money? It is that. It's building the name. It's very competitive. It's very cliquey. It's very egotistical. I tried and tried again a number of times and was just shut down. So it's just like, fucking hell, okay, it is what it is. Yeah.
It's about other sort of adventure.
Yeah. People within that same industry, it's quite ugly.
Really?
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
I actually find that I enjoy collaborating way more with your sort of athletes, your runners, cyclists, all of that, because it's kind of slightly different what we do. So, 2013, I was in the Royal Geographic Society. They're fresh back from Thailand to meet new people, ask them advice and tips. How do I make this? And they made it very clear on stage. If you ask for my advice, I'm not going to give you any on the mic, because why would I help you become my future competitor? And me and the crowd were kind of like, whoa, is that how it works?
No, I don't like that.
So it's a hard industry. You kind of have to make it on your own as well, which made things, doubly difficult. But, there's a way, perseverance, you break through and you just keep building. And it took me many years. But now, it's an exciting time. And hopefully, I can change that and open up more collaborations, because I will not do to others what they did to me back in the day,
That's a real shame, actually. It's so not in the spirit of, you look at Mount Everest, and when that was climbed, that was 7 different teams all sharing information about how to get to the top.
Yeah.
It was not, the Swiss, I think the year before, the British did it with the British multinational team. But the year before, the Swiss nearly got there, and they had another one planned 6 months after the British did it. But they gave them all the advice they'd learned from the top and allowed them to do it.
So it wouldn't have been possible without that knowledge.
It was constant sharing of knowledge. And it was like, the goal is to get someone to the top. And then when they got there, John Hunt went, this is not just our victory, this is every other team that helped us get there.
Yeah.
So it's a real shame to hear that
It'd be almost like me competing directly with the indigenous.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just these are the true hardcore. They live there, it's their life. It's like me taking their knowledge and then shunning them, and it's just...
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? You do have the sort of a rising tide lifts all boats, but some people don't subscribe to that, and they think, it's gatekeeping things. But there we are. That's a shame.
Yeah.
But tell me, that $3,000 you got, what was that from in that first year?
What was that from? I think that was mini brand deals. I want to say Fitbit was one of the first ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What on Fitbit?
Yeah,
Nice.
Fitbit I secured. I think one talk I secured, which I was so excited with at the time, was back to my old high school. It was 400 quid.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was buzzing. I mean, in Thailand, that would take me a month.
Really?
A month and a half.
Of fighting? Was that
of both fighting and mainly scuba diving.
Okay.
I think rent I was paying, I want to say £60 rent. I was in a nasty room, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
And it had a fan.
For you,
and it had
a nasty room compared to under a sled.
Exactly. Which is funny
nice.
because it's totally flipped now. Like now, yes, I love my extremes. Drop me in the Amazon, I'll survive. But I love my luxuries, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the flying. I love the hotels. And I think you need that balance, right? You need to be able to adapt. And I pride myself more on that. I don't necessarily call myself a survivor. I'd call myself an adapter. In the desert, I can get by. In the jungle, in the mountains, extreme heat, extreme cold, in the air, underwater. If I have to rough it, I'll rough it. But I mean, if there's the glamour and the luxury, I can really appreciate that. Because when I was on that desert floor under my trailer, and I remember, I think it was like day 50 something, I saw the first plane of the whole trip just out there, Boeing right out there, leaving the line. And for me, slowly dying of heat stroke, knowing that my only way was to keep getting up and push on, because there's no evacuation, there's no insurance. That trip altogether was about £4,000 or £5,000, for a world first record. But they're up there, and there's air hostess just bringing water, juice,
on demand,
food on demand. They just like ding. And there's a lot of business in China, so I'm relatively back and forth. And of course, I'm always flying over the Gobi Desert. So if I'm being looked after by China and they fly me out and I'm in a bed cruising and I'm just looking out the window thinking this time so many years ago, I was slowly dying right down there. And here I am. Ding! I'll have a glass of water, please.
Quickly.
Yeah.
But I think that's something about you, I wonder. People have tried to sort of join you on certain trips. And do you think there's something about you that allows you to do things that even, you said there were trained operators that tried to do the Mongolia trip and had to give up for certain reasons. Very few people, I think, even if they wanted to, could actually do what you've done. Is there anything about you think allows you to do that?
I don't know. I do not know. I know that my team want to get like scientists to study that, because there might be something that is less or more, or that I'm missing or don't have. I can't think what it might be, other than sort of training and preparation and sort of visualizing the worst case when a lot of people sort of visualize the highlights. But yeah, you're right. And I learned the hard way on the Yangtze, and that was fully my mistake. I was kind of in denial. I think I said to you, you don't realize how far you've come until you see people like trying to keep up. And that is exactly what the Yangtze was. People wanted to join. They would see the Instagram. I'd be like, wow, it looks crazy. I'd love to join. And I'd be like, well, okay, you can like come and join me. Yeah. So I would find out their experience, of course, their training, their fitness levels. And most of them, like all the ones that I agreed to, they seemed sound physically and mentally. So I was like, yeah, come and join me. But that's when I saw that there was just a different level. Like my UK photographer flew all the way from the UK to China, then all the way to the west of China to join me at Yushu, which was like 4,500 meters. And he was fine altitude-wise. And I thought, oh, this is great, because a lot of people start to suffer, especially if you've flown straight up from sea level. But we were met by a landslide. And it was a big landslide, one that would take maybe 2 days to navigate around. So I didn't want to go around, because it's already a year-long adventure, The more I can minimize that, the better. So I had two clear options to navigate over this landslide. And I left him to it. He's got family at home. I left him to it. I said, yeah, I'm going to give you 10, 15 minutes. You need to scout these two options. Get rid of all ego or pride. There's no one judging you out here. I certainly won't judge you. But I also don't know your confidence levels and your capabilities. Only you do. And you can't try to cheat this now or lie, Because halfway across, if you want to turn back, there's no turning back. You've got to fully commit. Because it's one of those where it would be difficult even just to turn around 180 to turn back. It was a nasty landslide. And rocks were still coming by. One whizzed by, just a small pebble whizzed by like a golf ball, just whistled past me. And I'm like, whoa, that was a metre away. If that hit me, I mean, instant death. Yeah, you're there near the rapids as well. They'll just take you. And, he looked 10, 15 minutes and he came back. Of course, I was devastated for him, but whatever decision he made was the right decision. And he was like, yeah, I can't do it. I'm not comfortable enough. So I was like, that's the right decision. So he ended up flying back 6 hours on day one. He lasted, and it was supposed to be a 3-week journey, which my morale massively dipped because being solo out there, especially in remote, you can go a day, 2 days without seeing any locals as well, maybe longer, And there's wolves, there's the Tibetan mastiffs, there's bears.
Yeah.
You're safer in numbers. So that hit me mentally. And he was one of the first victims. I lost 10 of the 16 different members who tried to join me at different locations along the route. Some lasted a couple of days, others lasted hours. It was like either landslide or altitude sickness, where one guy was evacuated at 2 a.m. Wolves and bears were a big one. Wolves and bears were the one with the prior military experience, which I was shocked by.
They were spooked by the wolves and the bears?
Yeah, they were spooked because an area that we camped, which was on night 1 or night 2, I think it was night 1, there was a local there and he said I wouldn't camp there. He saw a family of bears there that morning. And now we're in bear season. So your Western mentality is, oh, you leave the bears alone, the bears will leave you alone. The locals are like, fucking bollocks.
Really?
Yeah, they're like, no, look at this video, look at this photo of the man being mauled, look at, and you see enough and you hear enough that you're like, okay, let's stick with local knowledge, not international knowledge. They know the brown bears here. Let's listen to them, study what they say, and be vigilant. And so when he said that spooked the guys. And the next morning with their camera kits, they were there to film as well. They were with Nat Geo. Their camera kit was slightly frozen, and I think that broke them. I think a bit of altitude, bears, wolves, and those temperatures. Yeah. They were like, yeah, and they left me. I was like, fuck, and that was 2 days before day 1. So we hadn't even started yet. We were searching for the source of the Yangtze.
See, that's the method. Like, these are trained people. So we can talk about training all we like, though.
Yeah.
Those are trained people.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get to the day 1. That's what I would ask the question, Ash, would be, you don't seem to get scared in the same way as other people do. Or maybe not even fear, but anxious. Or maybe you do, but it certainly doesn't stop you. You also got malaria, one of the most deadly strains, in month 1 of your Madagascar trip. And for most people, they'd get that malaria, lose 13 kilograms in 6 days and go, you know what, let's just come back to this another time. You went, all right, I think I'm all right now.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have 9 days. I'll take 4 days.
Yeah.
And I'll carry on. So like, that's where I think there must be something where it just doesn't faze you like normal people.
I feel I'm also very logically thinking, though. So the logic behind the malaria was, yes, it's the deadliest, but I can also, there's 4 different strains. So the worst strain I can eradicate fully out of my system within like a week or so. And so once it's out of my system, I'm good to push on. So whether I eradicate it out of my system in Madagascar or in the UK, I'm going to push on anyway. So do I want to fly back from the UK to Madagascar to push on? Or do I stay and recover where they know malaria best in Madagascar, unfortunately, because they deal with it multiple times a day? But I was scared of the mosquitoes then after that, though. Like, really? Don't get me wrong, the paranoia was next, but probably only for a month. And then you kind of like, you almost sort of forget.
But why do the wild animals not scare you?
I think at night they do. The bears did the most in West. That's probably one of the times that I felt the most fear because I just felt vulnerable. I mean, you'd be like a 1-year-old trying to wrestle his dad.
Yeah.
There's just no chance. And the locals kept gifting me with these knives, and I'm like, thanks, but what's this knife gonna do to a bear? I was just like, and then he was showing me videos, and these videos were CCTV footage of bears during the torpor season. So they kind of like look for calories before they go into their version of hibernation. And that's when they are on the hunt. And I think it's a 1 or 2 month active window when they actively go off the mountains because the mountains are too cold and they search for food. And a lot of that drags the bears to these communities where they can smell food, but end up killing families and people,
even though you were scared, that there was never a thought of maybe stop.
No, there wasn't a thought of stop, but there was a thought of like, my torch is here, my knife's there, my air horn is there. I don't have pepper spray, I don't have weaponry, but maybe that will do. Maybe I can, press the air horn. And
Yeah.
But then that theory was proved wrong.
So basically, there's nothing you can do.
Nothing. This is why there was a time to really do that. But with all of the people being evacuated, that set me back 2 months. So that put me in the wrong season. And my China team and UK team were saying, look, the danger's too high. It's closing into winter, which winter brings temperatures to about minus 40 degrees up on the plateau. Stop now. Start again next year. You'll be better prepared. You'll speak better Mandarin. There's lots of pros to it. But I was just like, I cannot go through what I just went through all over again next year, because I will face it. Those were very difficult bits. And I said, I'm going to continue. And the year later, COVID hit. So if I did stop, Mission Yangtze just wouldn't have been a thing anyway. And
so the things they were warning you about to stop for, you got through all of it.
Yeah. And I think that came with, it's funny because earlier on in the career, I say career, even before it was a career, I was very naive, very arrogant as well, flying on a plane to Mongolia, attempting to walk across the country alone when I had never even been there before. A lot of it was being young, being very naive. I was still very scared. And that's why I trained physically and mentally, probably hardest for Mongolia than any expedition ever. But now on the Yangtze, that naivety had been replaced with evidence, with those track habits that I'm building time and time again.
And I guess you have more evidence than they would because they've not done it. So you actually go, I reckon I do this. Can I ask you a slightly harder one? I imagine this is a hard one to articulate because it's one of those, almost a feeling maybe.
Yeah.
We talk about this long thing that you have to do. And it's like, well, how do you mentally do that? And the answer is usually, you focus on what you need to do and you do it.
Yeah.
But in the little moments, like you can have that motivation, you can have that goal, but there's little moments probably consistently on a day-to-day basis where you must have those feelings of like, how do you actually do it?
Yeah.
Like mentally. Do you get what I mean? It's hard to articulate.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And it's very clear. And it's something that, I have to master on every expedition. Because the Yangtze, again, that's a 352-day journey.
Yeah.
That alone is so overwhelming. I mean, by day 5, we'd already lost like 6 members. Day 5, still got a year to go.
Out of how many?
7 people. That was the only time that I was on my satellite phone to my dad. And even a satellite phone I never had on previous expeditions. Yeah. I just couldn't afford it. I had like a text-only one. But now I was speaking, it was the only time I questioned what I was doing. Realising I'm only 5 days in, I've lost so many people. The first attempt to the source was a failed attempt. The Chinese team are telling me to abandon the trip, and I've still got at least 4 weeks of the hardest and 6 months left of being in the mountains. But I was on the phone and I was just like, why am I doing this again? That was the first time I've ever questioned. Didn't feel like quitting because I knew I couldn't. I'm a man of my word. If I say I'm going to do something, I like to follow through. It's also career defining for me. It's like I do this or I go back in the fish and chip shop. So I've got lots of different motives pushing me on. However, what was important to get through, to sleep that night and do that again the next day and the next day for another 350 plus days was allowing myself mini checkpoints and little luxuries. Because if you're thinking the luxury and the comfort is 352 days away, you're going to cave at some point. Right. You have to be waking up and look forward to your breakfast. You have to be walking and think, I've got a chicken tikka masala ration pack this evening. Those little if we make it to the next community 2 weeks away, we might be able to collect some tea bags. Yeah. And 2 weeks is insane. But if you're, in 3 weeks, we'll be out of wolf territory. In 6 weeks, there won't be any bears anymore. And then in 7 months, the weather's going to drop and the climate will be more like Myanmar. It'll be tropical. I kind of miss Thailand. I miss that environment. So you're in like these snow blizzards at 5,100 meters, minus 20, minus 25 degrees Celsius, visualizing along the same river 6 months from now, I'll be trading the bears and the wolves for the snakes and spiders, the blizzards for like the heat of the sun, and you actually start looking forward to that. So as long as you see this year as lots of little checkpoints in a way, give yourself lots of little luxuries along the way. And the luxury might be a tea bag, but it counts. I think that lifts your morale and you can keep going because you get the basics of life at the next checkpoint, the basic comfort or luxury of life.
So it's very much breaking it down. It's
breaking it down.
Taking down this big thing. And then do those negative thoughts still like come in? Because it's very good to kind of go, yeah, don't think about that. But then you got all day and you got all night and you've got not much to do. Those negative thoughts, do you kind of entertain them or do you just squash them when they come in?
I entertain them. Yeah, I let them speak loud.
Really?
Yeah, I listen to them because I wasn't thinking of them before the trip and I won't be thinking of them after. And because I feel it does sometimes fire me up. The harder I know the experience is, the more competitive I get with myself, the more willing I am to complete it, to shut down those voices. Because those voices are internal, but they also come from external sort of thoughts or other people of what they've said, and they've sort of imprinted them onto my mindset. So now they're coming up at the worst possible time. And it's the same like with Jacob Hudson, who joined me in the who joined me in the Amazon. I said to him, whatever you're feeling now, your emotions, I know you're missing your family, the vulnerability and whatnot. It's very rare you can be dropped into such a remote environment and experience and live what we're living right now. So those emotions and vulnerabilities will be there, but don't let them overwhelm you and don't let them sort of overtake what this experience is about. Because if you can be in the moment now and capture it, it will last forever. And you'll, in the future, in 10 years, when you're an old man, you'll remember this moment not for, I constantly was missing my family and I hated that, but remember it for, wow, that was maybe the Jaguar's first ever time seeing a human. If you can, experience, just absorb it, you can capture that moment and that moment will last forever. And you'll be remembering it, for as long as you can.
That's interesting. You're almost, there's a story I tell sometimes I called the shooter's fallacy. Yeah, people didn't like that name. They said it confused things. But anyway, the whole point is it's like a shooter who gets to the end of a game. He's missed every single shot, but he's convinced he'll make the next one. It's like, well, why are you convinced? It's like, well, I'm a 50% shooter. I've missed all the shots, which means I'm guaranteed to make this one. I.e., all these misses mean I'm due a shot.
Yeah.
But they say, so if you score loads of shots, do you think you'll then miss? He's like, no, that means I'm on a hot streak. And essentially it's like, no matter your situation, you view it as an advantage.
Yeah.
So for you, negative thoughts, brilliant. That's something to beat.
Yeah. It's a great way to put it.
I'm out in the middle of nowhere. Brilliant. Great, some memories.
Yeah.
Brilliant, some adversity to talk about. Brilliant. Like no matter what kind of comes your way, it's like, well, where's the edge?
Yeah.
Does that ring true or not?
Yeah, no, it does. And it's where's your time to grow. If you're going to be on an expedition and you want to grow and develop and build your character more, you're not going to if it's plain sailing. It's how you react when shit goes hard. It's easy to be positive when like you got a belly full of food and a hot cup of tea. Can you keep that high morale and that positivity when you have nothing, when you are starving, when you are dehydrated, when you are walking with malaria?
Yeah.
How do you react in those moments? And looking back, will you be proud at how you reacted, or will you be like, fucking hell, I was whinging like a bitch that whole time. I need to change that. I'm supposed to be this expedition dude who goes out and masters these missions, and I was just bitching and whining, So I'm always kind of looking at, judging myself as well, effectively,
We spoke about the sort of different sources of pressure the other day, and it's like that identity pressure of who is Ash Dykes. Ash Dykes is an explorer who doesn't fucking complain.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you're complaining, so
exactly.
Like,
This
is who I want to be, and this is not who you're being.
That's it. It's what happens behind closed doors, right?
Who shows up there?
Yeah, who shows up there, and that throws me all the way like back to training in Wales as well, training in the gym. Remember that person when you're out on these expeditions, because that person then training for Mongolia held the most fear. And that's when I was willing to face packs of wolves. I was willing to face the biggest and baddest blizzards.
Yeah.
I was almost overthinking, because it's probably 70% mindset and 30% physical. But I was training physically to help toughen up myself mentally. I'm training away. If there's going to be wolves, expect to be attacked. I was having nightmares where a pack were around my tent, and I'm like sort of this third point perspective where I've got a torch and a knife, and I'd wake up and is this really what I want? I'm not a soldier. The last guy attempted it 3 times. He failed. He looks like Jason Statham. He single-handedly crossed the Sahara and claimed that that was easier than the Gobi Desert. You know, if he can do that and he's got the experience, and he was like nearing 40, so he's wise. I'm a 23-year-old beach bum living on an island, having never have gone to a desert before, fighting people for money and scuba diving. You know, that if I ever needed fear, it was that. It was seeing who had attempted it 3 times before. And his little message at the bottom of the email, incredible is the ability to continue no matter what. Didn't know what he meant. It taunted me. I'd take it to Muay Thai training. I'd be overplaying it. I'd be running up the jungle mountains with backpack of weight and bricks inside, thinking, what did he mean by that? And it all made sense underneath the trailer in the Gobi Desert. You know, it all sort of came together, and I almost personified incredible because I was hallucinating. You know, my mind was so scrambled. I could almost see this incredible figure because I was like, there's no role model here. There's no one to look up to. There's no one to follow in the footsteps of. If incredible was a thing, if Ripley, the previous guy, was talking about incredible, what would it do in my scenario? And it would break its goals down. It would rest for 5 minutes, walk for 100 meters. You know, 100 meters, it's only small, but if it's covering 100 meters, it's 100 meters closer to the next water source whilst rationing the last remaining dribbles of hot water. And I've only got 4 days left. If I'm going to do this in 4 days, because I don't believe I could have survived longer, I think 5-6 days I would have died. So I had to keep going, but I was resting under my trailer for an hour. So I'm like, this is not adding up. I'm going to die if I keep doing this. But I could almost see it. It was ahead of me. Something was getting out from the trailer. And it was pushing on. And it was always getting out before me. It was always walking further than me. It was more efficient than me. And it was getting further and further away. But I was trying to keep up with whatever this thing was. I've since learned that the scientific term of it is third man syndrome.
Really?
Didn't know it at the time. Only found out a year or 2 years ago. But apparently when your body is close to dying, it sort of creates something that you can hang on to or look up to in order to help yourself survive, because it's never faced this scenario before. So, you know, when people say like, oh, my life flashed before my eyes, apparently that's your brain trying to find something similar to the current scenario that you're in so that it can like help you survive this. And it does a scan of your life and it's like, we've not been here before. You're on your own. But with that scenario, it kind of like, it's got longer time. It's not like you're dead within 2 seconds. It's prolonged death. And it's like searching for different things and it couldn't find.
So it projected like a map for you almost of like...
Almost, yeah.
Follow this guy.
Yeah.
This
and, you
guy's
know,
getting up. Come on, get up.
Yeah, and spiritual people will say it's a guardian. Scientific people say it's third man syndrome. There's other people that will claim it for different reasons. Whatever it was, you know, helped me. It's funny, I completed that and Ripley, that guy, did reach out after. He said, congratulations, you proved it was possible. I like to think of myself as the guardian sat on your shoulder.
Really? Oh, that's
spooky.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's really nice, right?
That's quite nice.
Yeah.
It's quite nice to hear that you do have those fears and doubts about it, because I think you could potentially fall into the trap of thinking that guy's just got mental resilience, doesn't question himself, he just goes and does it.
Yeah.
But you feel all those things. You just go...
Yeah, I feel all of them. I think my fiance starts to understand now, because she'll face certain things. Could be like traveling or going to Rome as a solo female traveler for 2 nights. And the first night it's overwhelming, she panics. And just how I was able to talk to her and relate, she's like, oh, wow, you have actually felt this before. And this is something as easy as just traveling to a new city. And I was like, you know, I know exactly what you mean. I've felt it all, from the little fears to the biggest fears.
Yeah. And again, it's everything's perspective, right? Like something that scares you just maybe far larger than the thing that creates the exact same response in someone else. It just might be going on a crowded tube. For some people, they get terrified.
Yeah.
But
I mean, some people would prefer to be dropped in the Amazon than to be on stage presenting to thousands of people too, right?
The biggest fear, isn't it? The speaking. Yeah. Everyone, they hate the idea. It's one of my favourite examples, performance under pressure. The thing that happens in your brain when you have lots of people watching you, and it's that cognitive overload, self-monitoring, oh my God, and you freeze. What the hell is wrong with me?
A lot of people have that.
Yeah, that social pressure and that social stock that's at risk. It's it is fascinating. I think one thing you say there as well is about that being tough. Like as rugby players, our training is, I think we maybe have a perception of being quite tough. We did one day in an army camp when we all got on the bus going for a lunch, and there's these army guys from the Irish SAS or whatever it's called. Come on, get off the bus, right? Get into the dirt, crawl around. They took us to this island called, I can't remember what it's called, but we got blindfolded, had to hold your shoulder with someone in front. You get put in the Atlantic, you have to do sit-ups. You're there for like half an hour or something. You get back up, you have to do all these challenges. They spray hose in your mouth, all this sort of thing. And all of us are just like, no, not. This just isn't us. A few guys even went like, we don't think we're tough, like we're not. And the difference is like we train for perfect conditions. We are literally like, how can we get the best sleep, the best food, be in the best like physical condition of our lives so we can perform at the perfect level? You still train things going wrong, but it's very different. Whereas in the military or what you do, you are training to be exhausted. You are training to be fatigued. It's so different. And I just know we would all struggle big time. We had to do that. So the level of resilience you have to have, in my opinion, is far higher. It's just streets ahead.
Yeah. No, that's cool coming from you as well, because you obviously train physically and mentally, because you get a lot of people who are nowhere near your sort of physique and build and done the training and played rugby, who think that they can do that, can cross the Gobi, you know? There was a guy who was actually pestering me on social media. He was saying that I'm not the first to do it solo and unsupported. And he was then claiming that he's going to be the first to do it solo and unsupported. And I just thought, it's just another character online. But he flew to Mongolia and he had a trailer, and then he flew to Olgi, where I started, and he was posting on TikTok, and he was evacuated on day 3. I won't mention his name because that would be mean. But,
it's a good example.
And I didn't, he was giving me abuse, and I never responded with abuse back.
No.
You know, and when I heard that and when I saw that, I still didn't. But I'm like, there's saying one thing and then there's doing it. That's also why I think the difference between truly solo and unsupported, I know a lot of people do, like doing challenges is epic no matter what. But there's people that do challenges and they will have support, you know, or they will have a van and that, as you know, as we just talked about, for morale, knowing that you've got people there to count, you've got somewhere to sleep, you've got food being brought to you. That is also the difference between succeeding or failing. With a van in tow crossing Mongolia, I mean, it would have been great. It would have been a good laugh, and I would have smashed it probably even quicker.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have nearly died for sure of dehydration. But you take that away, and it's a different kind of vulnerability, you know.
I think for a lot of people, they don't realise they can't handle being cold for 15 minutes, like without a sweater in London, you know?
Yeah.
And I'd probably be the same. I was like, this is too cold, I need to get... Yeah. It's like the resilience you probably think you have versus... And I'm sure we all have deeper reserves that we just don't have the willpower to tap.
That haven't been tested yet.
Yeah. And don't be wrong, in sport, we're very good at going to a dark place for a short period of time. Like you've got a fitness test or something like that. We can go very hard and harder than most other people can go. But it's the length of time and the attrition. And we also have direct rewards, support systems around us, S&C coaches everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a complete different ball game where you are on your own. It's consistent for days and days on end without the assurance that you can even get through.
Yeah.
That's where it's just, it's two different worlds. Bit cautious of time here, so I want to go into a couple of quick ones before we finish.
Sure, yeah.
We didn't even get to touch on the Amazon. Where do you think is the most inhospitable place in the world?
Oof.
Maybe that you've been.
That I've been, I would have to say the Gobi Desert, just because we're not meant to be there. We're not meant to survive there. I mean, I went over 8 days without seeing a single person, you know, sometimes 2 weeks between wells, between water sources. So that I've been, probably the Gobi Desert. The Amazon in terms of wild, I mean, Suriname's the greenest country on the planet, literally the wildest place, more trees per square mile than any other country on the planet. It is crazy. And we were with 2 zoologists and they genuinely were like, this capybara has never seen a human before. You know, we were so remote that it's a different sense of vulnerability, but you can survive. You know, you're with a machete at nighttime, hitting stingray, wolfish, piranha. That's your lunch. That's your dinner.
Yeah.
You know, you can get by. Yes, but I would probably have to say the Gobi Desert.
Yeah, and in terms of, you've spoken a lot about wildlife. I know you are a big advocate of conservation as well. Best interaction you've had sort of with wildlife, what would that be?
Has to be Suriname. Has to be in the Amazon.
Really?
Yeah, we would have sort of birds that would not leave us alone, because they were curious. They were like, what is... And again, the zoologists with it, that's why it was great having experts, because I'm not a wildlife expert, but they certainly are. And they know the reaction. They know all the Latin names of all the wildlife, but they also know the reaction that the wildlife usually gives. And a lot of the wildlife they had not seen react this way before. And so we were really getting a sense of, not just wildlife reactions in a different manner, but up close. They wanted to come close. They were, like birds were unsure they would fly, whether they would come back. Because they did, they could almost couldn't believe it. Same with the jaguar. Saw us, walked away, and then it was like, the fuck?
What is that?
Yeah, and then stood there 2 minutes just looking at us, thinking, are they prey? Do I eat them? Do I run? Are they a threat? So I think wildlife encounter, and even the caiman, I had a piranha head that I wanted to bring home with me, and I left it outside my hammock, just down the way, and you just hear a crunch. It's a caiman, of course, yeah, you're bathing with caiman, you're bathing with electric eel, piranha, and at night time you switch off the torch, because you get fully familiar with it, you're washing, you switch back on the torch, and then you've got eyeballs everywhere.
Really?
Everywhere, like thousands. The orange ones were caiman. I think the blue ones were more cats, and then you've got the diamond ones. The diamond ones just are overwhelming, and they are spiders.
Ugh.
Diamond eyes in your camp as well. You can see you've got to get out of the water. All different sizes. There was the Goliath bird-eating one, which it's probably the size of a small plate.
Do you mind
stretch
spiders?
out dinner plate?
I can't stand spiders.
Yeah, I don't particularly like spiders.
Oof.
But yeah, they would be crawling near your hammock, and sometimes you'd have your torch on, or there would be a torch on the outside. It would reflect like spider crawling up your hammock, and you'd have to flick it off. You don't really like them being there too much, right? Especially because you don't know the kind of species. We had a wandering spider in Dick's toiletry bag. The guy who was also with us, and pound for pound, it's the most venomous spider in the world, and it's right there in his toiletry bag. So,
yeah, no. And there's probably a high chance as well, because that's such an unexplored area. You potentially could have seen new species. Is that?
Yes, yeah, potentially. Yeah, we certainly came across things that weren't mapped.
Really?
So, yeah, we came across a big 15-meter waterfall. That wasn't on any satellite, wasn't on any maps. So we provided it to...
a waterfall that no one knew was there?
Yeah.
You're the only people that have ever seen it?
Potentially. Probably other than indigenous.
Yeah.
They would have seen it, but they would have had their own name for it, but certainly wouldn't have mapped it. So in terms of modern times, it's not on the map. So we've offered that to the government in Suriname if they want to map that. And of course, the source was never identified. So there's no coordinates for the source of the Kopanam River, and that was our mission, to become the first to find it. And that's so remote that maybe no indigenous have seen it, because there's no need to be up there. After living in Amazon, in Suriname, you want there to be rocks where you can dry stuff and cook stuff and sharpen your weaponry and your tools. You want there to be good enough water where you can get all of the fish, stingray, piranha, wolffish. Whereas near the source, you don't get any of these like luxuries. You wouldn't have a camp near the source.
What does the source actually look like, by the way?
It's literally a trickle of water coming out from the ground.
That's it?
Yeah. And that's how it started. And then it turns into this, massive.
Yeah.
The Yangtze was insane, because that was a small trickle that you step over. But 4,000 miles later, it's 10 miles wide, and you've got cruise liners sailing across it.
My God, like, wow. Yeah.
And you followed it from its infancy.
That's quite cool. That's quite nice,
it's really cool.
It?
Yeah.
It is, and we've barely even touched on the Amazon, because it's in your mind like one of the smaller trips you've done.
Yeah, which is crazy. But
there's
so, and it was 37 days, but there's so many stories. I remember spider monkeys were angry at us because we were, we set our hammocks up below them, and they were throwing fruit at us. And just that as an interaction with wildlife, as we were discussing, there's so much that happened that it's easy to forget what really went on.
Yeah. And the final one, in terms of, you must have been working with some cool brands now. I know that you've gone through a lot of the hard stuff. You still have to sell your trips to TV stations, and I know that's another challenge.
Yeah.
Perhaps touch on another day, but
yeah.
In terms of brands, are there any sort of like cool brands you've dreamed of that you've ended up being able to work with? Yeah,
loads. So I was an ambassador for Jaguar Land Rover for the Defender range for, I think, 2 years. I've worked with Jet Li, done a photo shoot with him in China, launching his co-branded range. But maybe the biggest is the one that I've been contacted by recently. I have been headhunted by Lamborghini. Which is huge. Actively to help launch their Temerario vehicle, their latest vehicle that's going to be released this year. And the ethos behind it is about being courageous, being bold, being fearless, but also starting from nothing. And they didn't hear of me before this. They actually Googled the right character and personality for the launch of their brand new vehicle. And they came across me on Google. I'd never heard of me or the expeditions, and they're in talks with my management. I'm supposed to be shooting with them next month. Contracts aren't signed yet, but I mean, if that goes ahead, to answer your question, that will be got to be the biggest brand that I've ever worked with. I mean, to be headhunted by Lamborghini,
that's unbelievable.
Is a dream. I didn't even dream. I didn't think it would be possible. But it's nice because it ties in with everything that I'm trying to take this in now. When I talk about being operative, being more mission-led, sort of dropping into an environment and technically trying to operate in diverse terrains and landscapes where it's not just physically suffering, but your mind has to be on point, because any wrong mistake as you're jumping out of the helicopter or paramotoring across the desert or climbing up the mountains to jump off the cliff or scuba diving, it kind of pushes you in a different limit where you're having to be very focused and switched on, being an operative.
Yeah.
But in an environment where, of course, you've just crossed 2 weeks on camelback, you're probably extremely dehydrated. Hopefully, touch wood, I'm not too dehydrated. But then, having to operate with, maybe Lamborghini will jump on board of that as well.
Yeah.
Imagine having like a Lambo buggy to cross a certain section of dune as well, bringing ancient from the camels to like modern.
Yeah,
with the buggy, it would just be epic.
Change up, yeah. It's unbelievable. They looked at, well, this is what we believe this car represents. Which human represents this best? And they went with you. That's a pretty
that's
cool
amazing.
Feeling, unbelievable. Well, look, Ash. Firstly, thank you so much for coming on today and giving us your time. It's been so interesting. And in terms of the human alchemy, the whole idea of creating something amazing out of ordinary beginnings, there's probably few examples as good as you. Your insight on consistent performance under pressure and that appraisal of challenge, I think, is genuinely inspiring. And people can take that, whether they're struggling in a job or they're doing little things that they find tough. Find the advantage. Where is it? What's the next little thing you can get to? I think it's really valuable. All the best with everything you have coming up. It sounds amazing, and I hope you get all the rewards you deserve. But absolute pleasure. Ash Dykes, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, mate.